Now we are going to the functions of the central bank. Now central bank's first and most important function is credit controller. Now we know that commercial banks, they use the money for giving loans. Now there are two things that results after loan. Now if they give more loans, okay, so if they give more loans in the economy, people will be taking ready loans, and what will happen when you take loans, you want to satisfy yourself, you create a demand of lot of products, so the demand will be more, aggregate demand will be more than the supply. That means people are getting easy loan from the banks, so they are demanding lot of products, and that cannot be produced, not feasible for the economy to produce so much. So what happens, it puts a upward pressure. This you know by this time, that when demand is much more, the pressure on price increases, because there occurs a storage of goods, and those who can, there occurs a shortage of goods, and those who can pay the price, they can only afford to buy. But this creates price increase, creates an inflationary pressure in the economy. What is inflation? When price increases, what happens? We consumers face the problem of buying, because we now need to sacrifice a huge amount to acquire the commodity. So inflation is a consumer's problem that can happen. And if you see in the other way, suppose if loan decreases. So if I say that loan amount has decreased. Now loan decrease means people are not getting much loans. So what will happen? They will stop demanding, and aggregate demand will be less than the supply in the economy. So demand is less than supply means there is some unsold stock of goods, but the suppliers have to keep their goods on sale, because if they store so much of good, how can they continue with the further production? So they have to reduce the price in order to attract the people to buy. Now this prolonged decrease in the price will lead to deflation. That means prices will reduce so much that the producer will not find it profitable to produce anything. So this leads to deflation. So inflation and deflation are two problematic situations. One is consumer's problem and the other is producer's problem. And to stop that thing, the loan amount that is passed from the commercial banks need to have a check on. So central bank, being the apex body or the father of the institution, monetary authority, they are entitled to perform the task of credit controller. That means the credit that is flowing from the commercial banks are controlled. How much, when, what credit should be given is controlled by the central banks. So we can say that it is performing some regulatory function. Regulation means keeping an eye on someone, keeping a check on someone. So that is why we call that RBI or central bank performs some regulatory function. It regulates the monetary system. How much money should flow as loan and how much money should be retained with the banks is decided by the father of the banking institution, that is central bank. Number 3, it is a banker to the banks and government. Now we general public, according to us, who is our bank? The commercial banks. We keep our money over here and we get a certain rate of interest from the central bank for keeping our money. Now central banks, whatever money they have made in the process of profit earning, where do they store? So for the central banks as well as for the government, they store their money with the central banks. So accordingly can we call that to us our bank is commercial bank, and for the commercial banks and government, they store their excess money, they save their excess money with the central bank. So for them the central bank serves as a bank. So banker to the banks and government, not to the general public. This you have to remember, central bank has no connection with the general public. Then lender to the last resort. Now many times the banks and government runs in deficit. They don't have that much of financial or monetary resource. They might even come to shut down. So during that crisis period or emergency, it is only central banks that serves as lender. That means they give the monetary resource to keep the commercial banks going. Okay, to keep the commercial banks continuing with their existence and the government to continue with their functioning. Number 5, maintaining stability. Now, how it is contradicting, how the function of central bank is contradicting from the commercial banks, you will understand over here. Commercial bank is performing all the tasks that helps them to maximize their profit, like serving as an agent, giving service of storing valuables, then providing loan at a certain interest. So all these adds on to the profit. But central bank has got no connection with general public, and what is their task? They function as a controller. So they try to bring some stability or a good system within the country. So we say that commercial banks and central bank differs in their perspective. They are there to maintain stability, whereas commercial banks are there to earn profit. Number 6, this is also difference between a commercial and a central bank. The commercial banks are buying and selling foreign exchange and helping you in conducting international trade. But central bank doesn't exchange the foreign exchange. They try to store the currencies or foreign exchange in reserve, so that if any emergency situation arises, they can have the equivalent money to recover or bring the economy back to its stable position. That means stability is their main aim. If the stable position is lost due to some kind of disturbance like political instability, war, earthquakes, everything that reduces that makes your economy fragile, that makes the system fragile, that reduces the country's worth in terms of rest of the world countries. So that time, to come out of the crisis or to recover the economy, the central bank has to store a certain amount of foreign exchange reserve, because more the money, more the capability of a country to come to its recovery. So these are the central bank's function. Now, after following the video of central and commercial bank, your task will be to differentiate between both the banks. And one more thing, the central banks have the authority to issue notes. They are there for printing notes, but commercial banks can only circulate the money. They are having no authority to print or issue any kind of money.